Good afternoon, boys and girls. My name is Ava Bear, and I was the chief of Muscadet up until yesterday. It's nice to see you.
What happened yesterday?
Isabella, sit down.
Well, they have what is called a term. So for 2 years, the chief can stay in what they call office. And so after 2 years, there has to be another election to get another chief, or the same chief, but we have to have an election every 2 years. So that's going to happen next Monday.
Why?
Well, it's the way that people choose who they want to lead the community. So everybody over the age of 18 gets to a say in that, gets to choose who they think will be the best people to do that.
My baby is almost 18.
Almost. Oh, next time she
I
will.
had a baby till 18.
Nice.
But I have a baby sister called Blakely. She's only 1 year old. That's my friend. I mean she's 3 years old.
Okay, guys, we have questions that we're gonna ask Chief Bear. Okay? Okay. What do you remember as a child on Muscadet?
Well, when I was growing up in Muscadet, there were no houses or buildings on this side of the river. There were only houses on the other side of the river. And our school was on the other side of the river. So everywhere we went to play with our friends, we walked there to go play. And it was a nice place. Muscadet was a really nice place to grow up, and we had lots of friends, and we played lots of fun games outside. We never had anything like computers, telephones, cell phones, power. Nothing like that when I was little. We didn't just flip a light switch to turn on the light. We had a lamp, and we had to use that for lights. So it was much, much different when I was growing up here.
Is your old house?
Pardon?
Is your old house?
We had a house, yes.
Is it old?
What's an old?
Old. No, it was fairly new. It was. We lived there for a long time.
That means it's old. Was it old when you said 18?
When I was 18,
Did it turn old?
then we got a different house when I turned 18. Yes, Talia.
What about when you were 19?
19? Yeah. I lived in Prince Albert when I was 19.
But now you live in Canada?
I always lived in Canada.
My mom how you feel like women in the river with her friends.
Yes, I used to swim in the river too with my friends. We played lots of games outside. We played hide and seek. We played a game called Ante-I Over. We played Red Rover.
What's a Red Rover?
It's a fun game where you have two teams and everybody holds hands, and then you call somebody from the other team. You say, Red Rover, we call Talia over, and then you have to come over and you have to try break through our hands. And if you don't break through, you're on our team. But if you do break through, you get to pick one of our team to go back to your side.
Oh.
And the winner is the one with the most people in their row. But we used to have lots of fun playing all kinds of games, winter and summer. We played outside. I didn't have a TV at my house until I was 7. Pardon?
What did you have to watch?
Nothing, we just played.
Just like my mom.
We played ball and all kinds of games we just made up ourselves.
Did you eat buffalo?
I have a few times, yeah.
Wait, where is your friends?
Pardon?
Where is your friends?
Where's your friend?
My friends, they live very close to me. It wasn't too far to walk to go play with them. Some of my friends did live further away, so I didn't get to see them as often, but I saw them at school.
Was it high school?
Yeah, I went to high school in town, Prince Albert.
What?
I rode the bus. But when I was little, like grades 1 to 4, we didn't have a bus, so we just walked to school. And in the winter time, it was still dark out when we went, and the coyotes would be calling sometimes.
I don't like coyotes.
But I had 2 older sisters to walk with me the first year. And then the second year, I had a couple of friends to walk.
What about bullies?
Pardon?
Was there any bullies?
Bullies?
Yeah.
Not really, I don't remember bullies, no. Maybe once in a while, but not much.
I have a bully at my old yes. I have an old friend when I was at daycare when I was 5.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not nice to have bullies.
There's a bully at my door.
Mhm.
Peter, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
I have an old friend.
Yes. Where? In Muscadet?
I don't know. He fought. I know I don't know where he is. How big is it? He didn't come here now. How big is it?
Okay, the next question we have for Chief Bear. How did families help each other long ago and how did they treat each other?
Well, families, when I was little, they helped each other a lot. Like for an example, my dad grew a huge garden. Well, my mom and dad both grew gardens. They each had their own because they competed against each other, see who could have the best garden. But my dad grew lots and lots and lots of potatoes. So in the fall, in September, when we would get off the bus, we would all help digging potatoes. And then my dad would take potatoes to all of the big families in the community to help them over the winter. And if you needed a cup of sugar or a loaf of bread or something, you just went and asked your neighbor.
He would give it to you.
Everybody shared. Yes, Talia?
My dad looks like the penguin when he wakes up.
What?
My dad kind of looked like the penguin when he wakes up. when the penguin, he like waddles to the chicken and then some roll the blood and eat it. Peter,
Mm-hmm.
my dad acted like a worm.
Okay guys, next question guys.
He
Next
always
question.
was like that.
Okay, were there any sporting events when you were growing up?
Well, we made our own games. We didn't have anybody like, right now there's the recreation department, so we didn't have anybody like that. We just made up our own teams, we played our own like ball or whatever. But when I was about 13, we got a curling rink in the community. And it was kind of a place where everybody went to gather. They all went there and had coffee together. A lot of people in Muscadet curled at that time. So I tried it twice, but I wasn't very good at it, so I didn't try it again. And some of the adults had sports teams. Like we had a really good hockey team, young men in our community. They were called Braves. And then we had a ball team too, young men. Didn't have much for girls, not too much sports for girls, but they did have a hockey team and they did really well, and they had a ball team too. They played quite a bit. They'd go to different tournaments and stuff in different reserves, different places. Mm-hmm.
So can you explain to us a bit of your family history, like who your mom was, your dad, your siblings?
Okay, so my dad's name was Ronald Bear, and his parents were Gilbert and Margaret Bear. And my mom's name was Agnes. She was Falster before she got married to my dad. And they lived here in Muscadet. My mom was born in Weldon, Saskatchewan, just past Bridge Hills. And she came from a really big family. There was 13 of them. and there was 12 in my dad's family. So I had lots of aunts and uncles, and I had 4 sisters. I have Ruby's my oldest sister. She lives in Prince Albert. And then my sister Margaret and Barbara. And I had another sister, her name was Carol. And then me, I was the youngest one, so I had no brothers, just sisters.
Wow.
And my parents lived on Muscadet all their lives, never moved from here. And they were married for 52 years, I think.
Wow.
And my grandparents were also married for, my dad's parents were married for 74 years.
Can I say something? I live in Prince Albert.
You lived in Prince Albert?
I do live in Prince Albert.
Oh, you do live in Prince Albert. I lived in Prince Albert for about
Teacher?
11 years.
Chief. Can I ask you something? Why is your dad is Ronald McDonald?
Oh. Well, he was Ronald Bear, actually, Ronald Bear.
Ronald McDonald. Do you mean the real life McDonald?
No, not that one.
And my dad went to residential school.
Also, that was mom did.
Your mom did? Your dad's mom?
No, my grandma's mom.
Oh, your grandma's mom went to
My
residential
grandma's
school.
mom was 82. Can I tell you something?
Mm-hmm.
Can
Oh, you forgot.
I tell you something?
Okay, next question, guys. Next question. Listen, please. Okay, back then, were there any medicine people in our community, and do you know any medicines?
I think there were a couple of medicine people in the community, I think, but I don't really know of people going to them for healing or for, it may have happened, and I do not know about medicines. I haven't learned about them. I have some medicines at home that were gifted to me when I became chief, but I haven't gotten them blessed, and I haven't used them yet. I have to learn about them.
So do you know if there was any cultural ceremonies and powwows on Muscadet?
No, there was no cultural ceremonies at all on Muscadet because that had been stopped by the government, if you understand what the government is. So that had been stopped many years ago, and we never had any kind of cultural ceremonies. We weren't allowed to have them. And I think the first powwow that I remember here was 1970 something, early 70s maybe, and it was over here. It was held over here, sort of by where the school is, and in between the school and the first school.
Neat. So back in the day, where did everybody shop for their goods and services?
We had a little store named Davis, which is about not quite halfway to PA. And it was a general store. They were called a general store back in the day. So they sold all kinds of groceries. They sold a lot of people sewed and made their own clothes back then. So they sold material and thread and things that they needed for sewing. And they also had a post office there, so that's where everybody got their mail. And they even had things like a few tools, nails, hammers, that saws, that kind of thing. So it was like a general store, carried a little bit of everything. And they had, I remember as a kid going there, they had this a big glass dome like this, and underneath there was a big wheel of cheese. So when you wanted to buy cheese, the storekeeper just cut a little slice, however much you wanted, cut a wedge off of there. And it kept like that. I don't know how that is, but they kept it out like that all the time. Just sat out on the shelf.
Cause you're funny.
Can I tell you something?
I would eat a pile of that. I would eat a pile of that cheese. Like 1 million.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something?
Sure.
My grandpa went into residential school.
You went to residential school too?
No, my grandpa.
Yeah, a lot of people did that.
And also my mama, I think.
Not your
Mama.
mom. Your dad?
Yeah, my grandma.
Oh, grandma, yeah.
Okay, our next question, guys, our next question. What do you remember about going to school on Muscadet, and when did you go to school off reserve?
So I went to school in Muscadet till I completed grade 4, and it was lots of fun, but we were all together in one room. So you know how you have all of you are in a grade 1-2 split. Well, where the school I went, we had there was two schools. One had grade 1-4, and 1-3, and the other one had grade 4-8. So there was one teacher for the whole class. So if we're all sitting together in the classroom, the teacher would get one grade started first, and he'd get us going on an assignment, and then he'd go on to the next class and get them going. And if we had trouble, we'd have to kind of wait until he was finished instructing the others. And sometimes some of the older students in grade 8 would help out if they could. But it was nice. We had different things we could do outside at recess time. Mostly it was like dodgeball or some baseball. We used to play baseball too. The school, the chief of the day decided to close the school when I was finished grade 4. And they decided to send us to a different school, a provincial school, quite a little bus ride away. And that's where I finished grade 5-8 there. But the chief at the time had told us that it was the best decision they made because they wanted us to learn, the way he said it, the way of the white people. So we could stand shoulder to shoulder with them and not be different. We would learn the same things that everybody else learned, and we would be on the same level. That's what he wanted for us at that time. So that's why they closed our school. That was in the mid-60s.
Which chief was that?
Ava Bear. Andrew was my godfather too. So I used to go to him for advice.
Nice. So how far back do you remember who chief and councils were, and who's the leadership back then, and how did leadership work?
Well, I think probably, I don't know who it would have been first, but David Knight, Chief David Knight and Chief Ava Bear kind of went back and forth. There'd be an election and they'd run against each other, and one would get in, and the next time they'd run again. And there was probably other people too that were running, I don't really remember at the time, but they always were back and forth for quite a few years. It would be either Andrew or David. So those are the ones I remember first. And I actually don't remember a lot about the voting. You know that because we only got to vote in 1960 and 19. First Nation people, boys and girls, were not even considered a person until the 60s. So we didn't even have the right to vote or the right to do a lot of things in this country. And so there was a prime minister in Canada, his name was John Diefenbaker, and he is the person who got us to vote. He is the one that made it possible for First Nation people like us to be able to vote in provincial and federal elections. So it's really important to vote, and everybody should get out. And when you're old enough to vote, remember that you count and your voice counts, and that you should vote in every election that comes up, whether it's here in Muscadet or the province or for the country of Canada. It's very important, and we didn't have that right before, so now we should exercise that right.
So can you explain what the history of Muscadet was?
A story that was told to me by Chief Ava Bear. Our first chief in Muscadet, his name was John Smith, and he was a brother to James Smith. So some of you might know there's a First Nation down the road from us named James Smith, called James Smith. So John Smith and James Smith were brothers, and they had a disagreement. And John Smith left the reserve with a group of followers that came with him, and they rode on horseback this way, and they came to the bank of the river, and they stopped, and John Smith looked out across the river and over there, and he said a word in Cree that means beautiful meadow. And that was a story Chief Ava Bear told to me. Now other people might tell you that a word like Mrs. Sam could say it, like Musquateo, something like that, means bear's heart. So there are two versions of how Muscadet got its name, but Chief Ava Bear had shared that story with me about the beautiful meadow. So I do know that about Muscadet. That was his story. We got the highway and the bridge through Muscadet in the early 70s. Before that, like I said, there were nothing. There was one house over here. One old man lived over here in a small little house. His real name was Isaiah, I think. Everybody called him Matthew, old man. And at one time, Muscadet had a farm on this side of the river, a band farm, and they raised cattle, and a number of men worked at the farm looking after the cows, but there was no bridge. So they had to get from that side where they lived, that side of the river, to this side of the river to look after the animals. So they had a boat, and the person on that side wanting to come to work would stand and call, "Come and get me." And then whoever was on this side would row the boat across the river and pick them up and come over. So the boat was sometimes on the other side, so it made it difficult for them to get back and forth. And in winter, of course, they just walked across the ice. But yeah, so we had a band farm and we raised animals. Muscadet had a lot of things back in the day. We had a flour mill that I don't know a whole lot about, but I do know that the government forced them to stop. They wouldn't let them have their own business. Like the people who lived here long ago when my mom and dad were young, they were controlled very much by a person that was called the Indian agent. And they couldn't really do much of anything that they wanted to unless they got permission from that person. So the people then couldn't even go to PA, they couldn't leave the reserve. There was a gate, there was actual fence. You know where the highway now goes towards town? There was an actual fence there and you couldn't go through unless you had a ticket from that Indian agent that said you couldn't leave and when you would come back. They weren't allowed to be in the city after dark. If they were caught in the city after dark, they'd be put in jail. And they were allowed to ride the train for free. So if they came out of town on the train, they would get off either at Davis and walk, or a little settlement up on the other end of the reserve called Senator. And they'd have quite a distance to walk home, but they were allowed to ride the train for free.
It's interesting history, very. So, as the children probably don't realize that you're the first female chief of Muscadet First Nation. Can you tell us a little bit about your history now? It's going to be history. This is sort of like your legacy video type thing of what it was like being the first female chief of Muscadet.
Well, I had a lot of help. There's 5 people who are on the council, band council. 3 of them were women, 2 male, 2 men. And so, you know, we work together as a team, all of us. It's very important to work together because you get more work done by working together. So I don't know how different it was for me as a woman. I think it was the same amount of work. It was the same. The thing that was the hardest was we had that thing called COVID, and that made it very difficult to do a lot of things. So I guess that was the biggest problem, I think. That's what I'll say. But it was an honor to be the first woman chief. I would have done it longer. I wanted to do, when I ran the first time, I wanted to do 2 terms if I could, if I got reelected. But I just decided I just needed time with my family. I wanted to spend more time with them, my husband, and plant flowers in my garden and take it easy. I worked since I was 17 years old, all my life. Had a couple of years off for when I had my children, and helped to raise some foster kids too in my life. So always been busy, always had a lot to do. So I think it's a good time to have a rest now.
So do you have any wisdom or knowledge that you'd like the kids to remember or to share with them?
It's very important to finish school. You really, really need to stay in school. I know that when I was your age too, I thought school wasn't fun, it's hard work, but you absolutely need to finish your schooling, grade 12, and then go on to university or some kind of training program so that you have a career. And that way you'll always be able to look after yourselves and your family, and you won't have to depend on anybody else, just you, just yourself. So always, always stay in school, and always do the best you can. Help your friends, help your neighbors, be a good person. Just be a good person. Try to help others as much as you can, and finish school. And be kind to your parents and your grandparents. Yes.
Why do you think you give us the other snacks?
No, did you get other snacks?
Okay, boys and girls, so that's the end of the interview. Can you guys thank Chief Bear for coming to see you?
Thank you.
Aww. Oh, there you go. Nice.
James tired.
Yeah. He is, yeah.
Can I have one?
Yeah, go ahead.